Hello, my name is Shiva Zarabadi, and I am a sociologist and PhD researcher at UCL Institute of Education. I am looking at the subjectivity formations of Muslim schoolgirls in two secondary schools in Southeast London. When I read the question of your project, I was asking myself that how much of the dominant normative understanding of cultural capital mattered for my participants as a capital to be gained, and if they have the same perception of what school or curriculum offer as cultural capital. The focus of my study and research interest is not particularly on cultural capital. However, I'd like to share with you some thoughts and research experiences of my study that can have some connections with the aim of this project. First, I'd like to respond on question 3. Sociologically, I think it's impossible to not thinking about cultural capital as relational and material experiences. So I belong to those schools of thoughts in sociology who believe in fluidity of identity and subjectivity formations. And by this, I mean that any aspects of our identity are fluid and transform in interactions with other humans, things, objects, and spaces. Having this in mind, I consider cultural capital as fluid, heterogeneous, relational, and material, which can go beyond the definition of Pierre Bourdieu, French sociologist, who coined this concept as what someone gained through cultural institutions, galleries, etc. As culture does not have one universal meaning in a diverse and multicultural society like in the UK, something that is understood as cultural capital for one group of people might not be a cultural capital for others. So I think as researchers and educators, we have to approach this concept not simply as, just feeling the ticking box assessments to conclude that someone has or does not have enough cultural capital. What I propose here is to rethink this concept and activism tool as not having a fixed one universal meaning for all. For instance, sociologist Tarek Madood, he suggests family, religion, ethnicity, community are cultural capital for some ethnic minorities. He even calls this ethnic capital. One of the research activities of my study was to make a photo diary of pictures that my participants took of objects, spaces, people, and moments that were important for them. In these slides that I am showing, you see some of those pictures. I worked with 15 students, majority of them at year 12, and they were British Bangladeshi. British Muslim Bangladeshi. My research has been done during the time when Prevent policy, which is an anti-radicalization scheme, enforced in school in 2015. My participants felt they are being monitored. They have to be careful about what they say and what they do, because they could simply be singled out and referred to the Prevent scheme authorities. Most of them told me that they could not easily talk about the cultural aspects of their community or their religion or their family. None of the participants of my study were chosen art for GCSE or A-levels, and they have limited connections with school activities and clubs. However, in one of these schools, Claire Stanhope, who was the head of art and PhD researcher at Goldsmiths University of London, and we both organized a debate session with Hannah as part of the debate cake sessions for the Center for Creative Explorations based in Harrisgale Academy. And so many Muslim schoolgirls turned up simply because they felt related to henna as part of their cultural tradition. The focus of this was on materiality, relations, body, and subjectivities. But I bring this example to you to show how this participatory session enabled to practice how we widening the possibilities for working with different materials. Not only we can make linkages between art and other non-dominant cultures in art classrooms and schools, but also doing justice to open up a space for other types of cultural capital to flourish. To briefly address question 4, I can talk about Inos, one of the participants of my study who attended X Factor for the first time. I'm aware that X Factor as a TV show might not be, included in the list of institutions related to cultural capital. However, I'm trying to show you and refer to how some institutional difficulties might hinder the access to some cultural places and institutions. Inos is a British Bangladeshi Muslim. At year 12, she wore hijab. She described how she was anxious if she can fit in X Factor show because of her hijab and because of there might not many people like her. Eventually, she was surprised when she saw a few other women with hijab. Here, I argue that there are other barriers like racism, Islamophobia, hate crimes, and fear of these that might hinder access to cultural capitals and institutions. Another aspect that many scholars working on social class argued is people from lower socioeconomic background might have difficulties for using these cultural resources. So I think what I'm trying to say is here that the lack of cultural capital, as some strand of sociology might say, is not always the problem of different parenting or different family values or cultural values, different religion or different culture, but the material and real limitations in the society. So I think it's not just the colonial approach, the content, or the particular colonial representation in museums that sometimes might hinder my participants' attendance into these cultural places. Rather, sometimes it is their material and embodied presence in some places that are intertwined with fear of becoming racially harassed or of not being fitted in. To reflect on question 5, I suggest in doing justice, we need to accept differences and move beyond what Madood calls the white cultural capital, to rethink and redo differently the notion of cultural capital, widen the space for different non-normative cultural capitals to emerge. At the end, my advice to art teachers would be to find these points of linkages for diverse group of students in your art classrooms, perhaps using more diverse cultural resources in relation to all ethnic minorities, creating equal spaces and possibilities for sharing diverse experiences and cultural capitals to emerge. I think what matters to students are the best agencies to guide us what tools we can use to widen the equal access to cultural capitals. For instance, for some of the participants of my study, abaya, which is Muslim women's traditional outfit, and religious Eid had a significant role. They kept talking about these, and it reappeared in the pictures they took for photo diary as some of their cultural connections. As mentioned in the poster, the memories, experiences, histories, people, places, and objects that matter for them can be our tools to a non-biased education and acquisition of cultural capital. Thank you.